Hi guys, Innocent from Drillabyte, and in this tutorial we are going to learn Python programming. If you remember, some days ago we held a webinar, but it didn't go too well because of network issues, and also I decided to record the entire webinar for you so you can watch and learn. So we're talking about Python programming, and in this long video I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about Python programming as a beginner, and we're going to cover some intermediate skills as well as some advanced skills as well. First, we'll be talking about why you should learn Python programming in 2022, and we'll talk about the Python programming syntax. So we'll be doing a lot of coding in this tutorial. We'll talk about variables, we'll talk about functions, we'll talk about conditionals, we'll talk about arithmetic operations, we will talk about loops in Python, and then we'll talk about modules. We'll also talk about object-oriented programming. We'll just cover a lot in this one video. So let's get right into it, guys. So the first thing I want to talk about is what exactly is Python, right? So Python is a high-level programming language that you can use to program the computer. So Python, one you need to know, is object-oriented. And I will explain what I mean by object-oriented. So Python is primarily an object-oriented programming language, and it's a high-level programming language as well, that we humans can interact with the computer. We humans can use the Python programming language to give instructions to the computer, and the computer can process these instructions into binary code which the computer understands, and then we can make wonderful applications, we can make games, we can do a lot of stuff using the Python programming language. So the Python programming language was invented by a guy named Guido van Rossum. Okay, so Guido van Rossum invented Python. A lot of developers have accepted Python, and you see Python being adopted in small scale and very large scale. So enterprise development or just personal development, a lot of developers have adopted Python. In 2021, I believe Python was the second, right, if I'm not mistaken, second or third most popular programming language, and it keeps increasing. The numbers keep increasing even in 2022. So what are the use cases of Python? So the first thing you need to know is Python can do pretty much anything. Okay, Python can do anything. Now, some people use Python for web development, right? So you can use Python to build a website. You can use Python to actually build functional desktop applications. So when I say desktop applications, for your Windows, for your Mac, for your Linux, etc. So you can use Python on many platforms because the language itself is platform independent. That means one Python source code can work on all platforms. Okay, so you can use Python to build desktop app. I said you can use Python to build website. You can use Python to build games. Okay, Python can be used to build games. You can also use Python for what it's currently very popular for right now: machine learning, artificial intelligence, data analysis, data science, data engineering, and whatnot. Okay, you can also use Python, can be applied in a lot of networking settings. Okay, so the guys into networking, of course, they use Python as well for their day-to-day operations. Okay, now also Internet of Things. Okay, Python can be used to code all these things. You have the blockchain and all these things. In fact, Python, the application is very, very robust. Okay, so those are some of the use cases of Python. In this tutorial, we will not be able to cover all, but I would show you maybe how you can use Python to build like desktop apps, how you can use Python to build games, how you can use Python to build a website. So there are what we call libraries, okay? And don't worry, you would understand exactly what I'm saying when I say libraries, Python libraries. Now these libraries allow you to have it's like an extension of what is possible with the core Python language, okay? So we'll go over those libraries in this tutorial and let's get right into it. So before we go to the next topic, which is how you can install Python, I just want to highlight a little things for you, okay? Now the whole essence of this tutorial will be installation of Python and then coding. So once we install Python, I'm going to start showing you the syntax, how you can start coding using the Python programming language. But even if we are unable to cover a lot in this tutorial, I would drop links to more advanced tutorial where I talk about the NumPy for data analysis. I teach the pandas, SciPy, Matplotlib, a whole lot of them. So I'll also drop link to that. So let's get right into this one, guys. The first thing you need to do is you need to install Python on your computer, okay? So how do you install Python on your computer? I'm just going to open up my browser right now, okay? So I'll show you python.org is the website to install Python. So once you visit python.org, you would see where you can download Python here. So let me just go over this python.org website. Here you have the Python software foundation, you have the documentation, which is the docs, you have the Python package index, you have jobs, okay, and you have community. So let's start with this, okay? The first thing is Python. Now under here you have about, you have downloads, right? So for the download, so for you to be able to install Python, you need to download it first. So you can just simply click on this download button, right? Once you click this download button, or simply just hover it, you're going to see source code, Windows, Mac, other platforms. So I'm using Windows, so I'll simply just click on Windows right here, and it's going to give me the latest Python release, so Python 3.10.2. So all I need to do is just click on this and I'm going to download it to my computer. Let me show you. So I've clicked on it, and once I click on it, all I need to do is go down here. So once you go down, you're going to see major new features, right? PEP, and I'm going to talk about PEP very soon, okay? I'm going to talk about PEP, but once you go down, you are going to get the files right here, okay? Now the files, this is the latest release. So for the files, I'm just going to click on Windows, okay? Windows 64, right? Windows embeddable package 64, and if I click on it, it's going to download Python to my computer. Now once it downloads Python, all I need to do is double click on the installation file, okay? So exe file, you can see it's going to download Python, right? So once it's okay, so sorry, you can just click on the installer instead of the embeddable package, okay? So sorry guys, this is 8.1 megabytes. Just click on the installer right there. So the installer is 26.9 megabytes, and this is an exe file, just a single file you can just really click on, okay? So that's that about that. You can see it currently being downloaded to my computer. Give it some time, and once it's downloaded, I'll show you the file and you can click on it and install Python. Now let me show you. I already gone ahead and I installed Python. Now let me show you one tip, okay? One tip how you can know if Python is already installed on your computer or not. There is something called the command prompt in Windows, and the equivalence of the command prompt in a Mac or a Linux setting is there's something equivalent to that. So in Windows we have the command prompt cmd. Okay, so I just click on my Windows and I typed cmd, so I have command prompt. Okay, now this is the command prompt, right? In the command prompt I can know if Python is installed by simply just saying python dash dash version. Okay, so once I enter this command in my Windows and I hit enter, you see is if Python is installed. In my case it's going to give me Python 3.10.0. okay, so this shows that Python is currently installed on my computer. If you try this on your computer and it gives you an error, that means you need to click on the file you downloaded, and once you click on the file you downloaded, you'll be able to install Python. So the rule is very simple. You can see the file I've downloaded right here. So once I click on it, I'm going to install Python, but I already have Python installed on my machine. Okay, so I hope you get that. I already have Python installed on my machine, so I don't need to like install Python again. So the next thing, let's do all the setting up right away. So the next thing you want to install is a virtual an IDE, integrated development environment, right, or a code editor. Now there are different ways to write code as a beginner. I can open up Notepad and I can start writing code on Notepad. Okay, so let me just show you. I can open up Notepad and write. So this is Notepad and I can just start writing code on Notepad. For example, I'm just going to write a print statement, and that print statement of course is going to be my first code, right? So that should be double quote. So I'm writing code on Notepad, right? And I'll just save this right now and let me show you exactly what I'm saying. So I'll save it as main.py. I'm going to come here and change this to alt text, and I'm saving it as main.py, and I'm just going to save it in my desktop. Okay, so main.py is now going to be a Python file, right? And the next thing I want to do is go back here. Okay, and I'll just go into my desktop. So if you are a beginner, you may not know exactly the commands I'm using right now, right? But we'll go over it. So I use the cd command, right? Cd means change directory, and of course I have a tutorial that covers everything you need to know about using the command prompt. Very simple tutorial you can follow, and you learn the Windows command prompt, or command line as it's called. Now I can just cd into desktop. Of course I can check exactly all the files I have on my desktop, and you can see I have main.py right there. So I'll clear this once again so you can see it. Now I'm going to run that main.py file using Python main.py here, and you can see what I have is hello world. Now let me write a more complex code, right, so you can see exactly what we have. So the more complex code is I'm going to write a for loop. So I'm going to write for I in range, right? I'm going to just put range 5 right here, and 1 2 3 3 spaces, and I'm going to do print I. So I will show you why. I'm just trying to show you why you need an IDE or a code editor. So I've saved that file. I'm going to run main.py again, and you can see I have error right here. So it says invalid syntax for I range. Okay, so for I range, so I made a mistake. Now making a mistake in Notepad, now I don't have like helpers that will tell me, oh, you made a mistake, even before running the code. I have to run the code every time before I know, oh, I made a syntax. So I'm supposed to write for I in range. Okay, and save this, and now I'll run this again once more, and you see it just prints 0 1 2 3 to the console. Let me run it once more again, and you can see it just prints this out. So you can actually use Notepad, your Windows Notepad or any notepad, to write your Python code, and it will work, right? It will work. But a better way to do it is to actually have an integrated development environment. Now, an integrated development environment allows you to write the same code, but you have syntax highlighting. It's going to tell you when you have errors. For example, the error I made by not putting the word in, okay, it's going to tell you, oh, you have an error here, don't correct the error before running the code. So that is one of the advantages of using an IDE, integrated development environment. And there are a couple of IDEs out there. One of the IDEs for Python development is the Visual Studio Code Editor. Okay, now the Visual Studio Code Editor has ability to become an IDE. Now, there are subtle difference between a code editor and an IDE, but Visual Studio Code kinds of have, you know, the ability to have you install more plugins to make it an IDE, but I'll show you everything, so let me not confuse you. But for now, just accept Visual Studio Code Editor as an IDE. Another popular IDE, and the meaning of IDE is integrated development environment. Now, another popular IDE is what we call the Jupyter Notebook. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to install Visual Studio Code Editor and the Jupyter Notebook, and I will quickly run over how you can use both to run the same Python program which we have written. Okay, so let me show you the Python program we have written here. I'm just going to go into my desktop, and this is the Python program main, right? And of course, I'm going to show you how to install Visual Studio Code. So I'm just going to write install vscode in Google, and if I write install vscode in Google, you're going to get the first website, which is code.visualstudio.com, and download. So Visual Studio Code Editor is a cross-platform editor, okay, and it's owned by Microsoft, okay, and you have a lot of developers using this code editor, so you can be rest assured that you would have the support you need for Visual Studio Code. Okay, so I'm using Windows. I'm just going to click on 64-bit to download this. If you're using a Linux-based system, a Linux-based operating system, you should just click on whatever you're using, 64-bit. If you're using Mac, just click on Universal or any of the preferred choices, and you have that installed on your system. I already have this installed. The installation process is pretty much straightforward. Click next, 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 accept the terms. Of course, you should read it, but I mean, this is Microsoft. Accept the terms, and you have that installed on your computer. Now, if you install it properly, I'm going to show you how you can start it up. Okay, how you can start it up from your command prompt, or simply just go here and type vscode. So you can see Visual Studio Code, right? And I'll click it to open it up, and I'll show you some tricks in Visual Studio Code where you can easily open up a file. So this is Visual Studio Code. I always have these getting started. It's going to show you some things. You just close it up, and you can just open an existing file. Okay, so I can just open main.py right here, and you see the difference why we need a code editor, guys. So main.py, you can see now I have the ability to see colors, right? The ability to see that this is in a different color. In, for example, if I do this, right, for I range 5, and I save this, you see I'm going to get this kind of red squiggly line that tells me, oh, you have an error here, you got to fix the problem. Okay, so then I'll know, oh, I didn't put in, okay, I have to put in, right? And then when I go here and I hit enter, it's going to properly highlight this, so it's going to properly give me the correct spacing for this. Okay, it's going to give me the correct spacing. So this is Visual Studio Code Editor. Now the next code editor I'm going to show you, so of course let me just show you something. So I can create a list, right? Okay, So I can create a list here, 4 5 6 7, and I can just print the list. Okay, so let me show you how to run this. So in Visual Studio Code Editor, you can open a terminal, right? And I'll just click open a new terminal, and here you have the same thing. So this terminal is the same as your console. Okay, your console or your command prompt. The terminal is the same as your command prompt. So I'm just going to show you how to run this here. So to run this here, first you have to go into the path where the file is saved, and say Python and call the name of the file, like so. Okay, so once I do that, it's going to print the list I have. The same way I did this is the same way I'm going to go into the path by cd into my desktop, because that is the path I've saved this. And once I do that, the same commands, this is just a command line, okay, on Visual Studio Code, a terminal. So the same command I used on my CMD, I'm going to use it on the terminal, right? And of course, your Mac and your Linux has a terminal like this, which you can run the commands as well. And the next thing you want to do is just say Python, okay, and the name of the file, which is main.py, and hit enter, and you can see it prints out that file. Okay, so that is that for the Visual Studio Code. I've shown you how you can download and install the Visual Studio Code, and then how you can open an existing, or simply click on file and click on new file to actually create a new file right here from Visual Studio Code. Okay, so I'm still going to show you one more trick in Visual Studio Code. Let's say I have this open, so I'm going to close up Visual Studio Code right now. I've closed up the Visual Studio Code itself. I'm just going to clear this. So of course, I can just show you exactly the files I have inside of desktop, and you can see, and inside desktop I have main.py. Now I can just call code, and I'll tell code to just open main, right, .py. So if I do this and I hit enter, you see that the Visual Studio Code Editor is simply going to fire up main.py, and you can see exactly what I have here. So that is that about the Visual Studio Code Editor. So I'll keep showing you more tricks in the Visual Studio Code, and we'll go on with that. So the next the next IDE I want to show you is should I say, I don't know which one is more popular, but I use both for different purposes. Now when I'm working in data science or data analysis, when I'm trying to do anything data analysis, anything machine learning, my go-to IDE, right, my go-to IDE is Jupyter Notebooks. Okay, how do you get Jupyter Notebook installed on your computer? You need to install the Anaconda package. Okay, Anaconda package. So anaconda.com individual edition. I'm going to click it. Of course, you don't need to know my location Google. I'm going to click Anaconda, the individual edition, and of course you want to go down to where you see this downloads. Okay, so you want to say download for Windows, or for, you see, for Mac or for Linux, right? You click the preferred one and you download it. Now when you download it, the download is pretty much easy and straightforward, guys. Click next, next, next until you have it downloaded to your computer. Now when you download it, you would have something like this, Anaconda Navigator. So once you click on Anaconda, you're going to have access to the Jupyter Notebook. So Anaconda is currently opening up, and I'll give you some time to open up completely, and then I'll have access to the Jupyter Notebook. Now the Jupyter Notebook is browser based. Okay, it's browser based, which means that you can work with it on your browser, both online and offline. Okay, so that's the Jupyter Notebook. You can work with it on your browser. And for this tutorial, we will be switching between the Jupyter and the Anaconda, okay? And the Anaconda, the Jupyter and the Visual Studio Code editor. We'll switch between the two so you can have a feel of what it looks like. If I'm doing web development stuff with Django, I prefer the Visual Studio Code. And if I'm working with machine learning, with AI, with data science, data analytics, I prefer Jupyter Notebook. So of course you have the two at your fingertips in your toolbox. Okay, so you make your choice and tell me in the comment section which of the editors you like most. I want you to tell me in the comment section which editor you like most. Okay, now I'm simply going to click on it. So this is the Anaconda package, the Anaconda software. In the Anaconda software, you're gonna have Jupyter. I'm going to launch it. Okay, now once I launch the Jupyter, you're going to see that it opens up in my browser. So this is my browser. You can see all my tabs I had opened, and it opens up in my browser, and I can just simply start a new notebook over here. So I can start a new notebook, or I can go to my desktop, right? I can go to my desktop and open up an existing notebook, and you see I just have print hello right here. So if I want to start writing, or I want to continue working with this, all I have to do is I will write my code. Now you're seeing this in this format because I'm opening a .py file. Okay, so when you open any .py file, this is exactly what you're going to get. Okay, this is exactly what you're going to get. You can edit, you have view, you have language, so you have different languages you can change this to. This is currently a Python file. So let me show you how you can create a new notebook. Okay, so I'm just going to close this up. I'm going to close this up and leave. So let's create a new Jupyter notebook by clicking on this new Python 3, and this is now what an actual Jupyter notebooks look like. So this is called a cell. This very line you see that has a green outline around it is called a cell, and you can write your code inside the cell like so. Okay, so I can write print, I can just put my name right there in a string, and to run this I just need to do shift enter, and you see I've currently executed this code, and you can see the result. Okay, I can also perform mathematical operations here. Shift enter, you see the output right there, and I can also just type any word, for example hello, shift enter, and of course it gives me an error. Why does it give me an error? Because it says hello is not defined, because it's seeing this as a code section. That brings me to how you can change this from being a code section to just a markdown. Okay, so if I do it as a markdown will allow me to just write anything. Okay, and this is not going to run. So shift enter, you can see this doesn't run and it doesn't give me any error. So let's say I want to give you some instructions, I can easily just write that here and you would see it. So this is the Jupyter notebook. If I want to delete a cell, I'll just press D twice on my keyboard, DD. I'm going to delete that, DD. You see, DD, and I can DD this as well. So this is the Jupyter notebook, and let's get right into writing actual code. All right, so I hope you're enjoying the lesson so far. If you're enjoying it, please drop a comment, and don't fail to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss a thing whenever we upload a video. Like I said, this video is going to be a long one, so grab a cup of tea, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy. Let's get right into coding. Now, Python, one of the advantages of learning Python is it's very easy to learn. Python is one of the easiest programming languages to learn in 2022. Yes, And another thing is, you have loads of resources. Even this right here is a very good resource for you to learn Python, okay? Because I'm going to be showing you everything. I'm going to be breaking it down, okay? Now, you have loads of resources on Python, and then the Python documentation itself. So this will bring me to the Python documentation. The Python documentation itself is marvelous, okay? Now you have the 3.11, which is in development. You have the 3.10, which is the stable documentation. Now you also have other resources. You see PEP index, beginner's guide, you see book list. You have a whole lot of resources for learning Python, okay? Now we've gone over installing Python, and let us go over some other resources we have here, and then we can continue from there. And now the first thing is the Python documentation, right? Now I'll just show you the PEP index, and if you know what PEP means before I say it, you can get. So you can see PEP, okay? So Python enhancement protocol is what PEP means, okay? So we have PEP 0, right? And we have a whole lot of versions. So PEP means Python enhancement protocol, okay? So of course you can guess the PEP version that is currently in use right now by most developers. And of course PEP is just like should I say a list of protocols that you can use when writing Python code. One is PEP 20, which is very popular, the Zen of Python, okay? Now PEP 20 just tries to model what Guido van Rossum, you know, envisaged when he was developing Python. So it just tries to tell you, oh, this is the Zen itself. Beautiful is better than ugly, explicit is better than implicit. So of course there is a code where you can actually use and get this Zen of Python, okay? So I'm going to show you. If you just do this, import this, so I'm going to show you. So one more thing I didn't talk about before I show you that is when you install Python, you have this IDLE, okay? You have this Python IDLE. So I'm going to open up this Python IDLE so you see exactly what I'm saying. Now this Python IDLE you can actually write Python code. So if you do import this on a Python IDLE, you're going to have the Zen of Python by Tim Peters, okay? And this is it. This is the Zen of Python. So let me also do import this right here and shift enter as well, and you can see you have the Zen of Python as your output, okay? Now if you like, you can go through that, but to me it's just a poem. But no, it's not just a poem, it's actually like a recommendation of how you should structure your code in Python. Okay, so the next thing we want to talk about is I just showed you the IDLE, which I forgot to do before now. I would go back to my documentation, which I was talking about. Go back to the documentation, okay? And so under the documentation you see beginner's guide, right? You also see advanced, right? Python packages user guide. You also see advanced, but let's just click on the beginner guide. You look at this Python 3 resources. You also have a tutorial, okay? So we're going to go over the beginner's guide. I'm going to just open that in a fresh place, and I'm also going to open the tutorial right here. So this is the Python tutorial, and the Python tutorial is a great way to learn Python, okay? A great way to learn Python. We talk about whetting your appetite, using the Python interpreter, of course invoking the interpreter, argument parsing, for everything. So but we are going to go over all these topics one by one, and you will see all these topics as we go along, okay? So let's leave this for now. let's go back to the beginner's guide, and in the beginner's guide you're going to see new to Python. So we've covered getting Python, right? And then there are a whole lot of some sites in browser coding for those who want to learn Python. So you can see some sites if you want to learn Python, and of course this YouTube channel is also one of the great resources for Python programming. Please subscribe so you can see exactly what we have. So complete list of beginners guide pages, you can see them right here. So download beginners guide for non-programmers, you can download this as well. So after hours programming, you have a Python quiz. Okay, you can also check out the Python quiz, right? And this is PyGUI. Okay, and you can learn tkinter tutorial, you can learn Dear PyGUI, and a whole lot of graphical user interface for Python. So let's get right into the actual learning of Python. You also have cheat sheets. Okay, so for Python you have for NumPy, okay, 10 best NumPy cheat sheets. For pandas, for machine learning, you have cheat sheets. You can feel free to go over this and download it. So I'm just taking my time to really show you where you can get resources and where you can get help if you want to learn and you want to go deeper in your Python programming journey. So let's start covering the very basics of Python, and I'm going to go back to the documentation which I have here. And the first thing is whetting your appetite. Okay, so of course I've explained exactly what this means to you using the Python interpreter. Okay, so of course I opened up the Python interpreter and you saw how it is. So you can use that as against using like an IDE and whatnot. So an informal introduction to Python, let's look at this now. Using Python as a calculator, I'm going to explain everything to you, and they touch on strings, they touch on numbers, they touch on lists, they touch on a whole lot of things. So let's go now. Writing your first Python program, and of course I'm going to be coming back here often to make reference to all this. So let's do like the informal introduction to Python and we move on from there. So of course first you have to do all your setup, and your setup includes downloading Anaconda, because in this tutorial I will be using more of Anaconda. So make sure you download Anaconda, have it installed on your Windows or your MacBook or your Linux machine, and then once you have it installed, open up Anaconda and then click on launch for Jupyter, right? And once you click on launch for Jupyter, it's going to be launched in your browser, and then you can click on new Python 3 and you have a new Python 3 setup right here. So of course the first thing you want to do is write a print statement. Okay, so the print statement or the print function, and in between these quotes you can write anything you want, but programmers always have to write hello world. You must write your hello world program as an introductory or beginner level programmer. So print hello world, this is your first program, very simple. Okay, now you have to save this. Okay, so I'm going to save this as print. Okay, print statement or print function. Okay, so I'm going to save it as print function. You can see there print function, which is your very first program, print function. I'll click shift control enter, right? If I use control plus enter, it's not going to create a new cell under it. Okay, so I can simply use insert to create a new cell below or a new cell above. I can just type B below, and I'm going to create a new cell. Now if you want to write a program and create a new cell after running the program, you can use the shift plus enter. So if I do print, and this time I'm not going to say hello world, I'm just going to say John. Okay, shift plus enter is going to print the, is going to run this code. You would have it printed and you have a new cell. Okay, so that is that about, you know, writing your print function and running your Python code. Up next, let's talk about variables. Okay, now a variable is of the topic. Variables is to me the very first topic you need to cover. Is the bedrock of every programming language. Every programming language uses a variable. Okay, so what are variable? A variable is simply, you know, a space created in your computer, in your machine, to save data. The layman definition will simply go like, a variable is simply a container where you save data. Okay, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Now the data you are saving in a variable can be retrieved, can be manipulated, and can be used, you know, in the program later on in the program. So that is what you call a variable. Let's create a variable in Python. Now first I'm going to show you what a comment means. So I'm just going to use a comment to just tell you what I'm talking about. Variable, so we're talking about the topic variable. Okay, and I'm using a comment because when I do shift enter, this is not going to run. It's a comment. Okay, now another way you can represent a comment is to change it from the code to a markdown. Okay, so that is anaconda comment, but hash variable is Python comment. So a hash symbol before any word or any number is considered a comment. The machine or your computer is not going to run that as a code. It's just going to be for the user, you and I, to see. That's what you call a comment. Okay, and of course you have hash symbol for one line comment. I'm going to show you how you can write you know, more than one line comment. So this is used to write more than one line comment. So I can do this, and anything in between the three quotes, so anything in between the triple quotes, hit enter, is a comment, right? Not necessarily a comment, but I mean, we can treat it as such. So this is anything in between the three quotes is a comment. So of course the computer is going to give you an output, but in the real sense, this is just you can treat this as a multi-line comment. Okay, a multi-line comment. So remember how you delete dd, right, and dd. So we're talking about variables for now. I just had to deviate and talk about comments because comments are essential. I need to use comment to describe whatever I'm doing to you. So the first variable I want to create is a variable called number. Okay, a variable called number, and number is going to be equal to 20, for instance. Okay, now number is equals to 20. Number here is the name of the variable, while 20 is the value of the variable. Okay, so if I do shift enter, you see that nothing happens and I have no error because the variable has already been created and the variable is called number. Now if I use my print statement, I can easily print number right here, and shift enter is going to give me 20. That means I created a variable called number, and the variable has a value called 20. Now the equal symbol is used to assign a value to a variable. Okay, let me create a variable called my name. Okay, and my underscore name, and my name is going to be a string. Okay, so of course shift enter, you see that nothing happens. When I want to access that variable, I can use the print statement and I can just call my name. So if I do this right now, you can see that my name will be printed on the next line. So the output, this is the output right here, will be what the value of the variable is. So that is that about variable. Now I've created a number as a variable. I've created a list, a string as a variable. I can also create a list as a variable, or any other thing I want into and save it inside a variable. So let's create number one, and I'll create number one, and number one will be equals to 29. Hit enter, not shift and enter. I'll also create another variable called number two. Number two is going to be equal to 50, right? And shift enter. Now on the next line, I'm going to print number one plus number two. So I'm just going to print number one plus number two right here. Shift and enter, and you can see I have 70 as my answer. Okay, so that's variables. You can actually use variables in a lot and lots of interesting ways. Okay, 1 second, I'm just going to pause that to attend to my call. All right, sorry about the interruption, guys. So you can see we created two variables, number one, number two, and then we saved the variables. Now while creating your variable in some other programming language, you need to give the variable a data type. Okay, so you need to say int number one before you can use that variable, but Python allows you to just create the variable. Python is smart enough to know what data type you are saving inside that variable. Either it's going to be a number, it's going to be a string, it's going to be a list, it's going to be an array, it's going to be a tuple, whatever it is. Python is smart enough to know the data type you are saving in that variable, and Python allows you to actually change the value of the variable. So I'm doing number one here, doing number two. I can actually change the variable and say number one is now equal to 50. Okay, number one is now equal to 50, and then let me now print number one right here and plus number two. Shift and enter, and you see that it's now 100. So it allows you to change the value of the variable at any time. It allows you to also retrieve the value which you saw and use the value. So let me talk about the rules that guide the creation of variables in Python and in most programming languages. So there are some rules. Now the first rule is a variable must start with a letter. Okay, either uppercase or lowercase letter. Okay, so a variable must start with A to Z. Okay, but in Python, the word name as a variable, right, is not the same as small letter name. So I'll show you what I mean. Name equals to John, right? This is not the same as name equals John. That means it is what? Case sensitive. This is not the same as name equals Peter. Okay, these are two different variables, okay, or two different names in Python. And if you call name, for instance, right, you can see it's John, but if you call name right here, you can see it's Peter. Okay, so variable names are case sensitive in Python. Okay, in some other programming languages they are not, but in Python they are. So you must start with letters A to Z. Variables can include a number. You saw number one variable which we created, so it can have a number 1, for instance. Okay, now a variable can have underscore, so you can see my underscore name. Okay, and a variable can also start with underscore. Okay, underscore name, right, equals to Adam. Okay, shift enter, and you can just print underscore name right here, and you can see it's Adam. So a variable, of course, it has to start with letters, and it can have underscore. Now in Python, or in most programming languages, or of course you need to go with what your organization uses, but the style is we use a camel case style, okay? And for me, I also do same as well. So that's that about variables and the rules for naming your variables. Now the very last rule you need to keep in mind is that a variable name cannot be a keyword. So there are some words that are reserved for Python, okay? They are reserved for the Python programming language, and one of the word is called a for example, a def, right? And this def is a keyword, so you can say def equals to maybe 40, because why? Def itself is a keyword, okay? If you hit enter, you're going to get an error because this is an invalid syntax. Def is a keyword used for defining a function, okay? And we'll get to that very soon. So I'm just going to that, delete. That's what I mean by dd. So that's that about variable name. Now the next thing you want to we would look at is data types, okay? So we're done with variables. We looked at the print function and variables, so I'm just going to change this to print function, and all this code will be available to you. Rename, so print function and variables. Next we're going to look at file, new notebook, Python 3, and next we will look at what we call data type. Right, so what exactly are data types in Python? Now data types, the concept of a data type is fundamental to every programming language. Now Python allows you to have different data type, and when we say data type, we simply mean what kind of data you are saving in the variable, okay? So remember, we've talked about variables and how you can create variables. Now what type of data are you going to save in that variables? Python allows you to save some kinds of data, or types of data, or data types that we would look at right now. So the very first data type Python allows you to save is in the category of numbers, okay? Numbers. And the first data type in numbers category, we would look at the integer, okay? And of course I'm going to change this to a markdown, so I can just you know, have this done. So we'll look at the integer, and then we will also look at the float. So these are data type in the number category. We will also look at a data type called complex. It's also in the number category. Then in the text category, we'll look at a data type called string, okay? Now we'll also look at data type called list. Now these are built-in data types, so these data type come built into Python, okay? Now we also look at a list. We would also look at a tuple, okay? We would also look at a dictionary, okay? We would also look at a data type called set. These are built-in data types, like I said. And okay, so these are the data types you have in Python. These are some of the data types you have in Python. Of course, you can just look at Google data type documentation in Python, and you'll understand exactly what we are talking about, okay, under data types in Python. So let's look at them one at a time. So the first data type we have is int. I'm going to create a variable, right, called int1, okay? And int1 is simply going to be 20, for instance. Now I've created a variable int1, and I'm just saving it as 20. Now let's check for what the data type is. So I'm just going to write type and I'll just put int1. Okay, if I shift and enter, you can see I have int as the data type. Okay, now the next data type I'm going to talk about is the float. Okay, so 20 is integer, 5 or 3, whatever, integer. So the int data type or integers are just numbers. Okay, numbers, they are real numbers. So 60, integer, 4, no matter what you want, any number is an integer. But when you talk about the float, for example, I'm just going to I'm creating a variable called f, and I'm saving it 50.1. now 50.1, I'm now going to check the type of f right here, and shift and enter. You see that the type of f is now float. Okay, so you can see that whenever there is a decimal point, that means you are creating a float. Okay, whenever there is a decimal point in a number, you are creating a float. Okay, now for a complex number, I'm just going to call that c. Okay, and I'm just going to call 50j, for instance. Now this is a complex number, and let's check the type. Okay, so I'm just going to do type equals type of c. Okay, type c, and you see it's a complex. So these are the 3 types of number that we cover here. Of course, you can always check. You can see the big numbers and a lot, bytes and all, in 100 numbers as well. Now let us talk about strings. So a string in Python, I'm going to create a variable called s for a data type, and you save a string in a single quote like so, or a double quote like so. So I'll call a string and I'll just save it as hello, right? And I can easily print the type right here. And what is the type of s? Shift enter, you can see it's a string. I can also save a string as well, equals to single quote. Okay, and I'll just save this as hi, and of course print the type of s here, and you can see it's still a string. Now, having talked about string, let us look at other data types. Okay, now if we go back up, we have seen string. We need to see list, tuple, dictionary, and set. Okay, so let us see what a list looks like. So to save a data type in a list, I'm just going to create a variable called L for list, and then I will use my square bracket to save list. So a list in data type, other programming language will call this array, and of course you can use a list to implement array, and you can save any kind of data inside a list. For example, I can save int, right? I can save a float inside the list. Okay, I can save a float inside the list. I can save a string inside the list. I can save other data types inside the list as well, right? And if you come here, I can even save a list inside a list. Okay, I can save a list inside the list, 2, 3. So this is very, very okay when you are creating a list in Python. Okay, so you see I won't get any errors. So L, shift enter, you can see L is a list, but typically you would always see list carrying the same kinds of data. For example, a list of numbers, for example, something like this. In Python, you will always see a list carrying the same type of data. Okay, and you can see L is a list. Okay, now for a tuple like so, I will just call this T, and then a tuple, you save a tuple inside a bracket. Okay, inside your normal bracket, and let me just call this 1 2 3 4 5 like so, and let's check the type. So if we check the type right here of T, sorry, you would see that we have a tuple as the type being saved right now. Now the very last data type we talk about is the dictionary. So I'm just going to save it with a D as the variable, and we create a dictionary by using this kind of we create a dictionary by, okay, before okay, let's talk about dictionary. So we create a dictionary with the angle brackets, okay, and inside the angle brackets we need a dictionary to have a key value pair. That's why it's called a dictionary, okay. So it needs to have a key value pair for mapping. So I'm going to map the name. I'm going to map a name of a person to like John, John, and I have to add a comma for more key values, and I'm going to say John age is going to be 3, and of course don't forget your comma, and we're going to say John's country. So let's say John is from Spain. Okay, so we have this, and note that when you save stuffs like this, when you the data type in a variable determines the functions you have for that particular variable. So it determines what you can do with that particular variable. So let's check that this is a dictionary. So we can check by doing our type and D, and we see that this is a dictionary. Okay, now one more data type before we move on to looking at each data type specifically. One more data type is called a set. Okay, so for set I'm just going to call that S. Okay, remember we did with string, so I'm just going to call this st for set. Okay, now for a set you simply save it inside single bracket, but it has no key value pair. Okay, so I can save a set, and I can say animals. For instance, I can say the first animal we have is a fish, and I can say a lion, what other animal? A goat. Okay, and what else we can save? A cow. Okay, so shift enter, and you see I have no errors. And if you have your type right here, okay, and type of st, shift enter, you can see it's a set. Okay, so we also have a range. For instance, arrow, we can say arrow equals a range 4, and enter. We can check the type of arrow. Okay, shift enter, you can see R is a range. So these are some of the data types we have in Python. We have sets. Let me just include the range right here. So we have a range. Okay, so you can see that we have int, we created integer, and you can see we created a float, we created a string, and we created a list. We also created a tuple, we created dictionary, a key value pair, we created a set as well, and then we created a range. So these are the data types that we'll be discussing in this session. Now in the next session we're going to look at making decisions in Python. So let us look at making decisions in Python, and then we can now come back to each of these data types and see how we can work with that. Okay, so file, new notebook, Python 3, and I'm going to change this to, okay, before we look at making decisions, let us look at arithmetic operations. Okay, let us look at arithmetic operations in Python. Okay, so I'm just going to rename this arithmetic operations. Now there are some arithmetic operations or mathematical operations you can perform in Python, and I'm going to show you by just doing them here. So you can add, okay, you can add numbers, and I'm going to do a markdown once again. So you can add numbers, you can subtract numbers, and we'll do all this operation. You can multiply, you can divide. What else? You can find the modulus, and you can raise to a power, right? So these are some of the operations you can do: add, subtract, multiply, divide, find modulus, raise to a power. So let's look at the mathematical operations one at a time. So let's create a variable. The variable first number is going to be x, and x is going to be 50, and we're going to create a second variable called y, okay, and y is going to be 70, right? So I'll hit enter. Now another way I would have created this variable is simply saying x comma y, right, and then equals to 50 comma 70. So this is another way I would have created this variable in one line. So, and if you print x, you see it's 50, and if you print y, it's 50. So let me just delete this so you can see that yes, it's true. So of course 50, and if you print y here, you get 70. So this is how you create the variables. So I've created two variables. Now let us look at mathematical or arithmetic operations that you can perform on these variables. The first operation is you can perform addition. So you can do x plus y, right? And you can also do okay, let me just get you the answer, 120. You can also do x minus y, right here, minus 20. You can also do x divided by y. You have 0.7, right? You can do x double divide, which will actually take away the decimal point, okay? So for that, let's do y double divide by x, for instance, and you can see it just gives you 1, so the decimal point is gone. So if you do just y divided by x, like so, you get 1.4. If you do double, like so, you get 1, okay? Now after division, you can do, so we've done multiplication, right? Okay, we've not done multiplication, so you can do x times y, like so, you get the answer. Now if you want to do x raised to power y, you do double, okay? So double is going to raise to the power, so x raised to power y is double, and you get the answer. So that's a very long answer there. And let's do modulus. So you want to do like x, so let's change x. You can change x, so you want to say x equals 20, and let's say y equals 10, for instance, and let's find the remainder of 20 divided by 10, or 20 divided by 7. So we have a remainder, right? So how do you do the modulus? You'd say x, right, this percentage symbol of y, shift enter, and you have the modulus. So 20 divided by 7, the remainder is going to be 6. So these are some of the mathematical operations you can perform in Python. But there is one more thing you need to know, and that thing is that you can actually import a math module. We're not discussing modules in this particular session, but you can actually do an import statement and import the math module. Okay, so I'm just showing you this. Okay, so if you import the math module right now, you would see that you are able to do a square root. So let me show you what I mean. So I can do m dot square root, and we are going to talk about modules in in a later session. But m dot square root, now you can do this. You can also do m dot sine, find the sine of 65, for instance, and you get that. So the math module allows you to do a whole lot of things. We'll talk about that in an upcoming session. Okay, now the next thing we want to talk about, after understanding the arithmetic operation that are available to you, let us now look at how to make decisions in in Python. Okay, so let's make decisions. So programming language is all about making decisions, and if you can't make decisions, then it's not a programming language. So I'll just open another file. I'll rename this. I'll call it decision making, right? So decision making. Now what do I mean by decision making? For example, I can create a variable called name. Okay, this is markdown. I'm just going to create it as code, and I can create a variable called name, and I'll call this name Peter, for instance, Peter. And after creating this variable, I can now make a decision. So I can say if, the keyword is if name equals Peter. So now if your name is Peter, because I'm doing a comparison, I'm going to use double equals. Okay, if not, I'll get an error. So if name is equal to Peter, right, I want you to do something. Okay, so what do you want to do? I want to print f, and whatever you see me printing here is called a string formatting, and I will just say your name is Peter. Okay, so your name is name. So this is how you make decisions using the if statement. So if name is Peter, just print your name is Peter. Now if I do shift and run this, you see my answer comes out as your name is Peter. Now let me quickly talk about the numbering. So if under the view section here, you can actually toggle line numbering. Okay, so you can see on line 1 we have name equals Peter. On the second cell, line 1 and 2, we have if name equals Peter, so it's referencing this name right here, the variable name, and you should print this. Okay, so what if we come here and change the name to John? Okay, you'll see that nothing is going to be printed because actually John and Peter are not the same thing. But we can actually tell it to check. Okay, else if name is not Peter, we use the else keyword. Just print of course we're going to use the format again, f, then before the string. So once you put f before the string, it allows you to reference the variable inside the print statement. Okay, so sorry, and we add the name, so the name of the person, sorry name, comma, you are not Peter. Okay, so shift enter, and you see the name is John. It says sorry John, you are not Peter. And if I change this name to Innocent, for instance, it says sorry Innocent, you are not Peter. So whatever name is right here, it's going to be replaced in this place. So decision making, so we are checking, okay, if one thing is not one thing. If it evaluates to true, okay, if the name equals Peter evaluates to true, whatever you are checking, okay, if whatever you are checking evaluates to true, then you can execute the next block of code. Okay, but if it evaluates to false, then it's either going to break or it's going to do nothing really. So you can see that. Now let us make our program robust by checking for some other names. Okay, and how do we do that? After the if statement, you can add elif statement. Okay, so I can add elif, and elif name, right, equals John, for instance, right? Elif name equals John. Now we can do something. All right,
sorry, I've been calling you since.
all right, sorry about that, guys, sorry for the interruption. So we can choose the elif name equals John. Okay, and we can do something. So print just print your name is John. Okay, sorry, we're using the f, so we're using the string formatting. Okay, so this is the string formatting in Python 3, right? So if elif name equals John, print something. Then for every other name, do this. Okay, so we are done with our checking, and now the name is Peter. It prints sorry Innocent, you are not Peter. Let's change the name to John, so John for instance, and you see it just prints name. Okay, so it's printing name, right, because we didn't add the bracket, the curly bracket. So shift, it just prints out John. Now we can also check for more things. Okay, so we can combine different checks. Okay, what do I mean by that? We can have age equals 25, and we can have height equals 6. Okay, all right, so we have name is John, age is 25, and height is 6. So John is 6 foot tall. Okay, now we can check for different things at the same time. We can say if the name of this person, so of course by the time we want to do multiple checks, we need to include that in bracket. So we can say if the name of this guy is John. Okay, if the name of this guy is John, and so we use the and keyword, and his age is 25, right, print your name is John. Okay, so let's change the age here to 3 for instance, and see what happens. So shift enter, and you see no, it doesn't print what we have here, because the and means the age and the name must be the same. That is what and means there. But if we change this to or and shift enter, you see it says your name is John. So I'm trying to introduce you to the and the or keyword when you are doing your check or your decision making. Okay, now we can also say, instead of if age is 25, we can say if age is less than or equal to 25. Okay, so this is another thing I'm bringing into it. So if age is less than or equal to 25, so if I do the and keyword, okay, and I do shift enter, it says your name is John, because the age is actually less than or equal to 25. But if I put 26 right here, shift enter, it just puts John. Okay, because the age condition was not met. Okay, and you see that all this condition here will not evaluate to true. Okay, and of course we are going to do logical operators in a later session of this tutorial, but for now I just wanted to introduce you to the if, the elif, and the else statement, because this is how you make decision in Python. Okay, so having said this, having understood this very concept, we will now go back to start looking at each of the data types, right, in Python, and see the functions or the methods available to those data types. So let's just quickly start with the first one, which is string. So I'll do file, new notebook, Python 3, right, and then we want to talk about strings. So I'm just going to make it a heading here, and I'll say okay. And what we want to talk about is what? Strings. Okay, so this is just a heading, so you can know exactly what we're talking about. So we're talking about strings in this particular section. Now, to create a string, you need to use single or double quotes. So I prefer using single quotes, right? And then let's create a string that just says my name is Mr. Peter. All right, this string is a word or a sentence that just says my name is Mr. Peter. Okay, very good. Now the next thing you want to do is we want to start looking at how we can really work with strings. Okay, so my name is Mr. Peter, right? and I want to create a new line. I am 30 years old. Alright, so this is a string. My name is Mr. Peter. I am 30 years old. Now I want, let me print the string, so shift enter, and let me just print name, and you see it just brings my name is Mr. Peter, I am 30 years old. What if I want I am 30 years old to be on a new line? Now you can introduce the new line character into your string, okay? And how do you do that? You do that with the /n, okay, in the string. So if I do /n, okay, Python is going to see this as a new line character. So if I do this and print this, you see my name is Mr. Peter, I am 30 years old is now on a new line, okay? So I can do something like this to make sure, okay, make sure I have no space, okay? So this is what you get. My name is Mr. Peter, I am 30 years old. So full stop. Now what if I wanted to do my name and I want to have something like this, right? My name is, so I want to have my name's Mr. Peter. I don't want to have is, okay? So I want to have my name's Mr. Peter, okay? For instance, what can I do? If I do this, I'm going to get an error, okay? This s, because I'm having the two single quotes, so Python does not know where this string ends, okay? Now Python knows that the string starts here from the first quote, but it sees one quote and it comes here and it sees another quote, so it doesn't know where the string starts and where the string ends. What you want to do to solve this problem is to first escape this particular string. So you can use this to escape this string. So once you put this /, Python knows to escape the second string and read it as a literal, okay? So this, and you see your program is fixed, okay? Another way you can do it if you don't want to use this escape sequence is you can make this a double quote right here and make the last one a double quote as well. So if you do this, you see you can still fix your program using this. So I've shown you two ways to fix your program if you want to have a single quote inside your string. The first way is you can use an escape sequence, which is a /, or you can use a double quote in the outer part of the string. So that is going to really just fix that for you. Now the next thing we want to deal with in string is you can find the length of string, okay? Now to find the length of string, all I simply need to do is call the len keyword and call the name of the string like so, and you can see 38. So I have 38 characters in this particular string, and if you count it, you see that you have 38 characters in the string. Another thing you want to know is you can actually index, you can actually call different letters. So this string have indexes, and if I do name and I use the square bracket to index into the first element in the string or the first character in the string, I can have it as m, which is m, okay? Now I can actually index from the first to the 20th, okay, to the 20th, but note this is going to stop at 19, not 20, okay? So if I do this, shift enter, it's going to get my name's Mr. Peter /n, okay? So you can see that when you are indexing, /n is not going to be escaped because it's just indexing, okay? Because you are indexing into the string. Now you can actually add one more number here, and this number means step, okay? In every step of 6, so increase the next number by 6. So if you start at 0, increase the next number by the 6th position, increase the next number again by the 12th, like that, and so on. So if you do this, this is what you get, okay? This is what you get. Now let us look at some of the functions that are available for a string. Okay, so functions available for a string. If you do name, right, and you do dot, you would see, and of course you hit the tab key, you can see a lot of functions. For example, capitalize, case fold, center. I'm going to show you some functions that you can use to check. So you can check if the string is in upper characters, if it's in lower characters. You can use the split, okay. You can do upper, okay. So let us do string dot upper like this, and you see everything is now changed to upper characters. So you can see that, right? Now another thing we can do is we can do the capitalize, and I hope I spelled this correctly. If you do capitalize, you see only the first letter starts with name. Only the first letter is being capitalized, okay. Only the first letter here. So like I said, dot hit the tab, you can see you're going to have a lot, okay. You can see you're going to have a lot. So if you check is lower or is upper, you're just trying to check if you see is false. So name dot is lower is giving you a false. So if you check name dot is upper, of course it's giving you a false, okay. So this is that about it. You can check this. For example, I want to do Mr. and I want to change everything to lower, okay. So I'm going to change everything to lower, and so we can see exactly what is upper is going to give me false, but when I do is lower right here, you see now I have true because everything is in lower case. So I guess you understand, like, the functions available on strings. There are a whole lot of them. You can always play with them to see exactly what is available to you. I'm just going to call this string, and that's it. So before we move to another data type, okay, let me show you that it's possible to actually join two strings together. So I will do first name, right, and my first name should be John, and I'll do last name, and last name should be Simon. Now we can just do first name, right, plus last name, okay, shift enter. So you have John Simon, okay. So you can see what we're talking about here, and of course you can add the space if you want. So you can add a space there, so you have John Simon. Now another thing you can do is you can have a string called greeting, and greeting should be simply hello, okay. Now what you can do is you can do greeting, right, and greeting times 5, shift enter. You see you have hello 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 in 5 places, okay. So that's that about string, and you can see how we've been able to work with string, how we've been able to manipulate string, the functions available to string. The next data type we want to look at really is list, okay. So let's look at list and how we can create list, the functions available to list, and a whole lot of things on the list, okay. So I'm going to click on file, new notebook, Python 3, and of course this is going to be heading, and okay, and this is called list. All right, so let's create our first list. Our list is going to be L1, okay, and we said our list should be created with brackets. So 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4. Okay, and shift enter. We can create another list called L2 and 3 comma 4 comma 5 comma 6. Okay, shift enter. Now what are the functions available for list? Now first we can index our list as well. So we can say the list at position 0 is 1. Okay, L1 at position 3 is 4. We can say from position 0 up to position 5, shift enter. You see we have 4. We can add a step, so we can say step by 2. We have 1 and 3. So these are the options, some of the options available for indexing, just like the way we did with our string. Okay, now another thing you need to know is there are some functions available. So we can of course we can do L1 plus L2, shift enter, and it just concatenates both. It joins the two lists as one. But look here, we have a lot of functions actually for working with list. So we have count, we have index, we have insert, pop, remove, reverse, okay, sort. Okay, and let's work with some of them. So L1 right dot count, L1 dot count takes exactly one argument. Okay, so we want to count the number of 3s we have. So if I do L1 dot count 3, we see we have 1. Okay, so if I save this in L1 plus L2, right, I want to save L1 plus L2 into L3, right, shift enter. Now L3, if I do L3 dot count the number, how many 3s we have in L3, you see I have 2. Okay, because actually we have 2 3s in L3. Okay, I hope I'm not confusing you right there. So that's the count function. Now another thing we want to look at is, let's look at L3, right, or let's create a new list. So the new list is going to be name, right? Now the name of persons, I'm going to call the first name Ali, the second name is going to be Bali, the third name is going to be Kali, and you get what I'm doing right here. Okay, okay, I'm just going to change this to Zali, Zali, and these are not real names. I'm just adding any name to Ali. Okay, and I'm going to call this Hali. All right, okay, so we have this. Now what I can do is I can say name dot reverse. If I do name dot reverse and I call name right here, so you can see the list has been reversed, right? You can see Hali is now like the last element there. Now if I do name dot pop, okay, if I do name dot pop, I'm going to get Ali. Okay, so of course if I do name, and you see the Ali, which is the last element, has been removed from the list. So that's what the pop operation does. And I can also do name dot sort. Okay, and of course shift enter, and if we do name now, we see it has been sorted, and Zali is now of course the last element, and so on and so forth. So we can sort in ascending and we can sort in descending. Okay, so this is some of the functions available to list. Feel free to play with them and just get a hold of what we mean by list and whatnot. So you're going to be working with lists, you're going to be working with arrays. In Python, when we say list and arrays, they mean like the same thing, because you can actually use list to implement arrays. Okay, now the next thing is tuples. Okay, so I'm going to create a file a new Python 3, and I'm just going to call that tuples. Did I save this? So I need to change this to a list, and let's talk about tuples. Okay, let's talk about tuples. So a tuple a tuple is not like a list. Okay, tuple is actually different because it doesn't allow you to perform some operations like insert. Okay, for a list you can actually do an insert operation and actually insert some values into specific places in the list. You can even do an extend operation. Let me just go back to this list and show you what I mean. So you can do L1 dot insert, and you can say I want to insert in the second position 9. Okay, so shift enter. Now when you print L1 now, you see 9 has been inserted in the second position due to this command. Now you can do extend as well. So you can do L1 right and dot extend. So L1 dot extend, and what do you want to extend L1 with? So I want to extend it with L3, and name is not defined. Li, sorry, I made a mistake. I used Li instead of L1. So L1 dot extend 3, and now let's see what L1 is. Shift enter. You can see that L1 is looking longer. Okay, so these options are not available in a tuple. So tuple 1 2 3 4. So this is a tuple. Shift enter. Let's see the options available by hitting the tab, and you can see all we have is count and index because it's a tuple. So we can just count how many values we have. For example, I can do 3 3 3 3 just to show you what I mean. Shift enter, T count, and of course we need to call that. Sorry, we need to give it a value. Sorry guys, I'm rushing this. So we need to give it a value, and we see number, how many 3s we have in this tuple is 1. We can also do the index, so T dot index like so, and we can say check where 3 appears. So check the first place where 3 appears. Shift enter, and you see it's on 2, index 2, because this is 0 1 and 2. Okay, now that's that for tuples. Now the next thing we have to look at is the dictionary. So if I go to Python 3, and I'm going to name this dictionary, so dictionary, right, rename this, and let's look at the dictionary and some of the values available in a dictionary. So I'm just going to call this D1, and I'll create a dictionary. Remember how I told you can create a dictionary using your square bracket, and you need to give it a name. For instance, a key is the name, and the value of name is going to be Troy. Okay, Troy, right? You use a comma to add more key values, and Troy's country is Spain, right? I think Troy's country should be Greece. Okay, and whatever. Troy's age is 52. Okay, and Troy's height is 6.5. all right, so we have defined a dictionary called Troy. Okay, now the next thing is to see what is available, or the functions available when you're using a dictionary. So let's just do this. Let's print out D1, right? D1. Now we can print D1 and reference the the keys. Okay, the keys, remember it's a key value pair. So if we want to reference the key, 2 ways to do it. We can do D1 square bracket and name like this, and enter, you have Troy. Or we can do it this way. So we can print D1, Now we want to reference the age, okay, d1 dot age, like so. So if you do this, dictionary object has no attribute age. Of course it has an attribute age, okay. So d1.age, yep, looks correct. Okay, so I think we just need to stick to this, okay. So this is how you actually reference it. Now let's look at the functions available. So for the functions available, we have items, okay. So d1 items, right, and we can have all the items right there. So dict items, let me just use the print statement, okay. So we have items. We can also have d1 dot we can pop an item, okay. So we can use the pop, we can use d1 dot keys. So if we use d1 dot keys like so, we have all the keys which are available to d1, okay. Let me just get back to where I was. Okay, so we can delete a particular key value, okay. So we can delete, right, and we can just reference d1 like so, and we can say delete the record of his height, okay. So we can delete the record of his height like this. Shift enter, HEIG, sorry, HT not TH, okay, spelling error, HTIGHT, right. So we've deleted that. Let's now print d1 to see exactly if that has been deleted. Shift enter, and you can see name, country, Spain, name, country, and age. So height is gone from d1, okay. So you see, these are some of the functions available. We can get the value, we can update, we can do a whole lot of things from this. Okay, so let's not dwell too much on that. So that is dictionaries. We've just looked at dictionaries. The next thing we want to look at is actually how do we accept input from a user. So accepting user input. So I'm just going to create a file, create a new notebook, Python 3, and let's look at accepting user input, okay. So to accept user input, we're going to just say input like this, and so we would accept user input. So let me write a program that would ask the user for the user's name and then greet the user. So it's going to be a greeting program. So the first thing I want to do is print, okay, and what I want to print is what is your name right here, okay. Alright, so what is your name? And the next thing is we want to wait for input, but the input we want to save it in a variable equals what? A variable equals to name, and name is going to be input, okay. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to print something. Remember our formatting, and what we want to print is simply hello, right, and the name of the person, and of course we want this, okay. So name. So we have done this, and I'll just shift enter, and you see what is your name, and I'll just write lion, enter. It says hello lion, okay. So this is it. Now note, in some programming language you can actually enter a message for the user right here by just saying enter name, okay. So in some programming language you can do this, and in Python too you can also do this. So what is your name? Enter name, and you can see enter name would reflect here, okay. So you can just enter your name right here, hit enter, and it says John, okay. So So this is a very good way of just letting the user know that they are supposed to enter their name. Okay, they are supposed to enter their name. So like so, and you see the program works. Let's write another program that asks the user for two numbers and adds the number and outputs the result. So the program is going to be input, right? This is going to be saved in the first number is going to be called x, okay, and x is going to be input, and the first input is, we are going to tell the user to enter first number, right? And okay, and then the second input, I'm just going to copy this, Ctrl C, so we don't have to type too much, and enter second number. Okay, and of course we have to change the variable y. And what should we do? We need to print, right? And what are we printing? We're going to print a format, right? We're going to format it, and we're going to print x. Sorry guys, getting slow in typing. So we're going to print x right here, and we're going to print plus. So this operation is meant to add the two numbers. Did you get me now? We are going to add the two numbers. Okay, so x plus y, right, equals x plus y. So this is the operation. Enter first number, I'm just going to enter 5. Enter second number, I'm going to enter 5. So 5 plus 5 should be 10, right? Yes, but no, it's going to give me 55, and it's correct according to what is happening. Now this would now make me introduce something called typecasting. Okay, so you can actually change a data type from one data type to another in Python, and let me show you how you can do that. So the data type of x and y are currently strings, and just to confirm that, we can just do type over here of x, shift enter, and you can see it's a string. Okay, now for us to change this data type, we need to put something called int. Okay, wrap it around a function called int. Remember, int, okay, is a data type. Okay, so we need to wrap it around the function called int. If we do this again and we say 5, enter, and we say 5, now we get 5 plus 5 equals 10. So this is a simple function like a calculator. You can actually use the idea from this to build a whole lot of fun command prompt apps that you can share with your friend. Of course, like I said in the beginning of the tutorial, we would learn how to build functional graphical user interfaces, so you can just give your family and friends your app. They can double click and install your app, and they can see wonderful things you have created using the Python programming language. So let's continue. Now if we do type of x over here, you see now x is now int, or x is now integer. Okay, so this is all about user input. Okay, and how you can use the user's input to actually do some fun stuff in Python programming. So having looked at the user input, the next thing we want to look at is something we call loop. Okay, or loops. So I'll just create sorry, I'm not creating that. I'm supposed to go to file, new notebook, and Python 3. So let us look at loops. I'm just going to call this a heading, and I'll do okay, and loops, shift enter, like so. We have the for loops and the while loops. Okay, the for loops and the while loops. Now I'm simply going to write a loop. Let's say I want to print 1 to 10. Okay, let's say I want to print 1 to 10. I can do print 1, right, and copy this, Ctrl C, copy this, and maybe just change this. So I'm printing 1 to 3. For 1 to 3, this may not be hard work, but if I want to print 1 to 100, I would have to be writing print 1, print 2, print 3, print. That is going to be very tiring for you. That is why we need loops. Okay, in programming, you don't want to repeat yourself, and that principle is known as DRY in programming. DRY. Okay, DRY. And DRY simply means what? You guessed it right. Don't repeat yourself. Don't repeat yourself. So how can I use loops to solve this problem? Okay, let's say I want to print 1 to 10. I can use a for loop, right? So I can say for I in range. Remember range we talked about in previous data types. Okay, so range is a data type. For I in range 10. Okay, now I can say print I, print what? I, like so. Shift enter, and you can see I have 0, 1, 2 up to 9. So because I want to print from 1 to 10, I can actually say from I in range 1 to 10. Okay, for I in range 1. Okay, is it a comma? Okay, yeah, for I in range comma 1 comma 10, you have to print I. So this is going to start from 1 up to 9. Now if I want it to get to 10, I need to increase it, because it will stop at 1 less than the second value you give it. Okay, it will stop at 1 less than 11 right here. So 1 to 10, instead of doing print 1, print 2, print 3, print 4 like so, you just need to use a loop. So this is how you loop and print 1 to 10. So you can see how we use the range. Okay, now also let me teach you, let me show you how you can implement so this is implementing range. You can actually loop through a list. Okay, so for, let's say you have list, okay, L1, and L1 is going to be a list of animals. Okay, so first animal, lion. Why am I seeing a lion today? Second animal is a dog. Third animal is hen, and fourth animal is man. Okay, so we have different animals. Of course, you know man, we're higher animals, right? So different animals. Let's loop through L1, okay, with a for loop. So for animal, right, in L1, so for every animal in L1, right, we need to print that animal. Okay, print animal, shift enter. Am I making a mistake? For animal in L1, print animal. Okay, this is Li. I made a mistake. Okay, so you can see it prints lion, dog, hen, man. So for animal in L1, sorry, print animal. Now we can check something. We can check that if animal, right, if the first index, if the first index, or listen, if the animal is hen, don't print it. Okay, if animal is hen, right, if animal is hen, just delete it altogether. Okay, if the animal is hen, delete animal and then print print animals. Okay, so we're having delete animal equals hen, print hello. Okay, let's instead of using the delete, let's just use print hello. Okay, something is going on. If animal is hen, it needs to be a string, right? Print hello. Okay, let's read the error code. Name hello is not defined. Okay, so yep, I need to make this a string. Yep, shift enter. So you see, so if animal equals hen, just print hello and print animal. Okay, all right, so you can see that we've been able to print hello in the place of hen. Okay, so you can play with this, you can make your program robust, you can check for a lot of things, and just go with the flow. So the next kind of loop is a while loop, right? I'm going to show you what a while loop looks like. So for a while loop, we need to say while, and we check a condition, and after we check a condition, if the condition is true, we need to perform an expression. For example, print I, and after we print I, we need to increase or decrease, so we need to give it a stoppage. Okay, so I'll just do I plus equals 1, for instance. Now I want to check if as long as n is less than 10, okay, as long as n is less than 10, print n, and then do n plus equals 1. So this is the same thing as saying n equals n plus 1, right? The last number 3 line. Okay, so let's say n starts at 0, for instance. Shift enter. You can see this is now going to print 0 to 9. So if we say n starts at 1, and as long as n is less than 11, now while loop is now used to print the same thing 1 to 10, just as we did with a for loop. Okay, so you can see the for loop prints 1 to 10. You can see what it looks like. For I in range 1, 11, print I. Now we're using a while loop to achieve the same result, but you can see the syntax is quite different. So we have 4 lines for the while loop, and we have just 2 lines to achieve the same result with a for loop. So it's not about the number of lines, it's about the efficiency and exactly the use case of either a for or a while loop. That's what's gonna determine whether you use a for loop or a while loop. Okay, so that's that about loops. You can actually make your loop robust, and you can do a whole lot of things with a loop. You can create a game that keeps on looping as long as the user has not inputted a certain value into that particular into a box. Okay, so we can do a guessing game, and of course as we go on we'll do a guessing game in this session. So that's that for loops. The next thing we want to look at is something called functions. Okay, so every programming language has functions. Okay, so I'm just quickly going to rename this. So loops, file, new Python 3, and let's call this functions. Okay, so functions. Now why do you need functions? Okay, you need functions to actually encapsulate your program. Okay, so functions are used for program encapsulation. So for example, let's say you want to add 2 numbers, okay, or you want to square you want to square a number, okay? You want to square a number, and you know normally to square a number you just have to say, for example, 5 squared, right? You would have to do, or you want to say you want to find the square of a number, so like this will give you 25, okay? What about if you want to find the square of 10? Okay, you can do like this. All right, so that's 10 squared. Okay, so let's write, instead of writing this, let's write a function that squares a number. Okay, now the concept of function is very interesting, and you start a function by using the def keyword and then the name of the function. Okay, now the name of the function is going to collect a number n, and then what do you want to do each time you call this function? You simply just want to print or return. Okay, so in this case I'm going to use return keyword, so I want to return n, right, times or squared. Okay, n that star squared. So shift enter, and I can now use this function. So let's use this function and see exactly what's going to happen. So I'm going to call square. Okay, square. I'm going to call square of 5 here, shift enter, and you see it gives me 25. I'm going to call square of 100, shift enter, it gives me 10,000. Okay, so this is how you use a function. Okay, so you define the function and then you call the function when you want to use the function. Okay, so as an assignment, you know the almighty formula. I want you to write a function that actually calculates, like uses the almighty formula to perform calculations. Okay, so that is your assignment. Do it and drop the code in the comment section. Okay, so you can also write other functions as well. Let's say functions. So you want to do a function called add. So def, and add is going to add 20 to any number you give it. So collect a number n, right, and then what n is going to do will return. Okay, so n is going to return n plus 20. Okay, so I'm just going to do add 20. Now these are simple functions, but it's just for you to get the concept. Okay, so I'm going to call add 20 and I'll call 10 on it, and you can see if we add 20 to 10 we get 30. Okay, so this is the concept of functions. Functions are huge. Okay, functions are huge. There is the lambda as well. Okay, the lambda is a way to write a one-line function, and let me just show you what I mean. So lambda, right, lambda, and what I mean is you can actually say lambda a, okay, and then comma b, and what do you want to happen anytime you call this function? So I just want to do a plus b. Okay, so if I save this function, in x, in a variable called x, and I do this, so shift enter, and now I can call x, right, and x is going to have 2, 3, shift enter, and you see it's 5. So this is the lambda function. So you can see it's pretty easy to understand. So it's just a one-line function you can call, and then you can use the lambda function you can pass the lambda function into other functions as well, and as we progress we are going to see this in detail. Okay, we're going to see this in detail. So up next, let us we've talked about function, we've talked about lambda functions, right, and I can tell you, I mean, we've covered a lot in this session. So one thing I want you to do for me is, please, if you reach this point, please consider subscribing, consider hitting the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so that you don't miss whenever we post on our channel. Now One of the concepts I want to touch on before we really look at advanced Python programming, because this Python programming is really meant for beginners. Before we look at advanced Python programming, let us touch a little bit on Python modules. Okay, so Python modules are very important, okay, especially when you're working with, you want to have like libraries, okay, other libraries. You need to understand Python modules. What are they? Built-in modules, you know, how to import modules and how to use them, because this is one you know, topic that you need to understand. So I'm just going to click on file once again, Python 3, right, and Python modules. So the first Python module we looked at is really the math module, and to get that we just imported the math module. So the math module is a built-in Python module, and once we do import math, we can now have access to math dot, okay, a whole bunch of commands or functions under the math module. Okay, so we have math.floor, we have math.floor, radian, nan. We have a whole lot of stuff right here, a whole lot of stuff. Okay, all right, so let's do math.floor for instance, and let's say math.floor 5.6, sorry guys, 5.6, shift enter, and let's do math.ceil. These are some I know at the top of my head. Math.ceil 5.6 as well, shift enter, you get 6. Let's do math dot okay, that's let's do math.floor, math.radians, okay, and of course you see 1 point whatever, and we can do math dot whatever. But listen, one thing I want to show you is instead of always typing math, we can do import math as m. So we have this alias and we can change everything called math to m. So this just makes our typing less and our work neat, what I believe. So that is the math module. The next module we want to look at is the date module. So we can import date time module. So this is the module, and let's check today's date. Okay, so we can say date time, right, dot, and let's look at dot date, right, dot date dot today for instance. Okay, so shift enter and you can see today's date. We can do dot date dot year, okay, dot date, sorry guys, dot tab, and let's look at the day. Okay, date time dot day dot date dot day, and attribute day of date time object. Okay, so you can see a whole lot of stuff we can do with the date time module. Okay, another module we can import, which I would show you, is a module for graphics. Okay, a module for graphics known as Turtle module. Now when you import the Turtle module, you can actually I'll show you. So let me import Turtle module as T, and under here I can just do T dot forward. Okay, T dot forward, and I can do 100 right here. So shift enter, and I hope name error T is not defined. I thought I just did import Turtle as T. Yep, import Turtle as T. Yep. Okay, T dot forward, and let's check this out. So if we open this, so you can see what the turtle module looks like. So it just draws a line because we use t.forward. So let me close this window, and I'm just going to close this program. Each time we do the turtle, we always get this. Okay, so I would just and then I would simply do something fun. dd I'm going to say a loop, okay, for I in range 5, do t dot forward by 100, and then turn t dot right, turn right and face 90 degrees. Okay, so shift enter. Okay, name t is not defined. Once again, we have to go back and shift enter. Okay, so that works, and let's look at what happens here. Okay, you can see we were able to draw this rectangle using that particular module. Okay, so if you want to see the turtle module, and now you can draw this kind of graphics using the turtle module, simply just check the documentation. Okay, let me close this up. Check the documentation, and you have access to learning the turtle module. So I'll just call these modules, right? I'll rename this. And before we move to like advanced concept, because we are almost getting there, learning the advanced concept, working with database, working with files, and stuff like that, let me introduce you to object-oriented programming, okay, in Python. So everything in Python is considered an object, okay, and if you are going to work with Python on the long run, you need to understand object-oriented programming. Now object-oriented programming means you are going to be creating classes, okay. So let's say we have you can create a class of a person, for instance. Now a person is going to house all the properties, or all the characteristics, let me put it that way, of a person, okay, all the properties of a person. Like a person can have legs, a person can have hands, a person can have ears. So you can define this class in Python, and then from a person class you can create an object, okay, and that object can be, for example, a person called John. So John can be an object of a person, okay. So let's see what we mean by creating classes in Python. So I'm just going to create a file, click on file, new, Python 3, and I'll just call this object oriented programming. Okay, now to create a class, all you need to do is use the class keyword and the name of the class. So I'm just going to call it person, and then you have to you've created the class, okay. So you can easily just use the pass here, and you can see that for sure you have created a person class, okay. So I can create now when you create a person class, you don't need to say pass, you need to give it properties, okay. So what are the properties this person should have? This person should have name and age, for instance. So to do that, you need to define init function, underscore init function, okay. Now when you define the init function, it takes 3 parameters: self, right, name and age, okay. So self is a constant parameter that it will always take, okay. Now you need to set it, okay. So how do we set it? We now have to reference self dot name, and we have to set that to name. Okay, we also have to set a reference self.age, and we can set that to age. Okay, so if we've done this, that means we are done with the person class. Now we want to create an object from the person class, means we want to initialize an object. Okay, so to do that, right, we want to create an instance of the person class. Okay, now to create an instance of the person class, you just need to say p1 for instance, and then we call person. Right, now person is going to have a name, so we give it a name called John, John, and we give it age of 34 for instance. Shift enter, and you can see we have created p1. So we can check type of p1, right, and type of p1 is a person class, as simple as this. Okay, now let us do p1, right, and do dot name. Okay, so if we do p1 dot name, we see we have John. If we do p1 dot age, right, we see we have 34. We can actually change p1 dot age. Maybe p1 increases his age, we can say p1 dot age, right, and equals 50 for instance. Shift enter. Now let's now see what p1 dot age is. Okay, and you see age, p1 dot age is now 50. Okay, now let's go back and add some methods. So there is something called method, so object methods. Okay, so we want to add method to this person class. Okay, now how we do that is simply use the def keyword, and we are going to add a method called say hello method. Okay, so anytime we call this method, of course we need to give it the self parameter. We just want to print hello, right? Of course you can use the string formatting we learned from our previous session. We just want to print hello. Okay, and the name of the person. So this is exactly what we want to print. Hello, the name of the person. Shift enter, shift enter, shift enter, like so. Okay, so now let us call say hello. Okay, so if we do p1, right, dot say hello, like so. Shift enter, sorry guys, say hello, shift enter, and this is say hello, p1 dot say hello. Okay, so we're printing hello and name, and what do we have here? Self. Okay, so sorry, we have to reference self.name. Okay, so we have to reference self.name, if not we're going to get that error. So say hello, shift enter, and you see we have hello John. Okay, so if we change the name right here, so let's change the name p1.name, so you see that it works. p1.name, we want to change name to innocent. Shift enter, shift enter, you see it just says hello innocent. So this is how you easily can create a person class, and then you can create attributes for that class. So the attributes are name and age, and you can create methods. Okay, and the method we created here is say hello. Okay, so this is the very basics of object-oriented programming. Of course, we have inheritance, which I will touch more on in advanced tutorial, but inheritance simply means you are creating a new class, but the new class is going to inherit the properties of person. Okay, so let me just play with inheritance so you can see exactly what we're talking about. So you are actually creating a new class, and maybe this class should be called student. Okay, and this student will inherit the properties of person. Okay, and just do pass, shift enter. So we're creating a new student class which inherits the properties of person. Now a student1 s1 can now be equal to student. Okay, And of course, because it inherits the properties of person, it's going to have a name as well. So a name, Ali, and it's going to have age as well, 18. Shift enter, and you see it works. So s1 dot name is going to give me Ali. s1 dot age going to give me 18, and s1 dot say hello is going to give me hello Ali. So this is the concept of inheritance. Okay, we can have a particular class inheriting from one class or multiple classes. Now this student class is the child class, while the person class is the parent class. Okay, so in our advanced Python sessions, we will look at we'll dive deeper into object-oriented programming, right? Then we'll dive deeper into some of these concepts. Okay, some of the advanced concepts in Python programming. Really, we touched some other topics which we were unable to cover in this beginner class, and then you can just continue to expand your Python knowledge. So where do you go from here? Please, you have to subscribe to the channel and watch out for the advanced session. But even before that, we have some advanced tutorial. If you're interested in learning data science, there is a link to data science with pandas, data science with numpy, and data science with matplotlib. Of course, we are working on machine learning tutorials as well on this channel. So please do well to like, to subscribe, to share this video with your family and friends, and cheers to learning Python programming. I hope you learned something from this. If you did, please leave a comment. I'll be glad to respond to your comment. Okay, so if you know of any ways that this tutorial would have been better, you can drop your suggestions in the comment as well. We are open to helping you grow and growing as well. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye.